Today, we're talking about self-watering pots. Hi friends, welcome back to Botanical Woman. I'm Christine. I want to share with you why I love self-watering pots. I started using them in the spring of this year, and it's been really good, so I want to share it with you because as someone who has over 200 plants, watering them can be very tedious, and sometimes I forget to water one here and there, and especially things like ferns that need a lot of watering. I just have a hard time keeping up with it, and these pots have been really great. This one in particular I got off of Amazon. Actually, I bought all of these off of Amazon. It's just really convenient. And this one, which is the same one as the one up there with the ferns, is pretty shallow, but it's been working really well. So I highly recommend it if fern is your thing. Otherwise, you can try it with other plants like alocasias. I've had a lot of success with them in these guys that I also got off of Amazon. This is basically, the white part's kind of like a cache pot, and then this black part is just the net pot, and it just goes in really easily. Yeah, so it's kind of like, it just comes with its own set. You can also obviously make your own. I can talk about that at the end. And yeah, so if we think about the way the self-watering pot works, it's just kind of like semi-hydro. It has the same idea. You know, you have a net pot and there is a water reservoir at the bottom, and this cache pot, you know, holds that. So I had a lot of success with the alocasias. Your marantas will also really love it, and some of your hoyas will also like it with the wick. So plants that really love a lot of water will be super happy in the self-watering pot with the wick. Plants that don't like as much water, like your philodendrons, don't use the wick. That is basically what I discovered. My pink princess is in a self-watering pot, and it is basically developed into a semi-hydro type of setup because it's now grown roots into the reservoir and it's sucking up water as much as it needs, but at the top it has an opportunity to get dry before I water it again. The same thing would apply to your monsteras as well. The Monstera stiltobacana that I have is also in self-watering, and that does not have a wick. When you're using the wick, there's constant moisture being wicked to your plant. So plants like your monsteras, your philodendrons that don't like consistent moisture, they're not gonna like that. So remove the wick. And what's going to happen is they're gonna grow roots into the reservoir, and then it's just gonna kind of resemble a semi-hydro setup, which is perfect because it ends up pulling up water, as much water as it wants, whenever it wants. Besides the wick, I've also noticed the medium that you put your plant in is also really important. So for instance, my Anthurium clarinerva, I originally had it in its chunky medium, and I wasn't using the wick, and I just had the reservoir, but it was keeping it too moist, so I got root rot. So my advice to you is change it to something more airy. I'm using leca. It's really loving being in leca because the roots are quite thick. It really prefers a medium that allows more air to its roots. Same thing with peperomias. They also want more air, so using perlite has worked well for me. And as far as hoyas are concerned, I've used a lot of ponds, and if you can't get your hands on that, you can use bonsai medium, or just a cactus medium is fine too. Just anything that's just really airy will work, but not leca. I find leca a little bit too airy of a medium for hoyas because hoyas roots are a little bit much thinner than, say, a plant like the Anthurium, which has more orchid-like roots. And speaking of which, you can put an orchid into a self-watering system as well. The rule that I would give you is if the roots are thin, use something that's going to hold a little bit more moisture but still very airy like perlite, and roots that are really thick, use leca. To summarize, plants like begonias, peperomias, ficus, plants that have finer roots use a lighter medium like perlite and do not use the wick. And if you don't want to buy some of these pots off of Amazon, you can make your own. This is a 3-inch net pot, just in a jar. A mason jar works perfectly for it. And this is a Hoya Chelsea in some leca, which it's still adapting. And sometimes when it's adapting, it'll get yellow leaves. So don't be alarmed when that happens, or if that happens. And this is a 5-inch net pot that is just in a can of tomatoes that I had. I'm just looking at it like, yeah, I try not to peek too much because it damages the roots. But yeah, it's been pretty happy in this setup by itself. I am a little bit worried about the rust. If you know anything about that, let me know in the comments below. It works for a lot of different types of plants. You just have to adjust little things here and there. I've even gotten some of my calatheas and peperomias to work, and those can tend to be more challenging as far as watering because they don't want too much water and they want more water. So it's like this back and forth. My begonias have done a lot better with the self-watering pots. I have some jungle cactus that has been doing great in it as well. The only plants that I have not tried sticking in a self-watering pot right now is succulents. And I know that people have tried it with both succulents and cactus and they have had success. So I think it's just a matter of your plant being able to grow, develop roots, water roots basically, right? So if you've been growing your plant in soil, it will have soil roots which take up water differently from roots that have been developed in the water. So when plants start to grow their roots down into the reservoir, those will be water roots, and those roots will not rot in the water. I hope you found this video useful, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments below. We will also be putting a list in the description of all the plants that I have in self-watering pots that I've seen a lot of good results from. And yeah, and the links to the products that I've mentioned are also going to be in the description. Thank you for watching, and until next time, happy growing, guys.